Hey YouTube, my name is Nick James and I'm going to be teaching you guitar. This lesson is all about what separates a beginner to intermediate guitarist, and we're going to dive into those slight differences and what you could do to kind of move up to the next level. So a beginner guitarist probably knows their open chords. So if I were, just learning guitar, that would be the first thing I would focus on, is just learning my open chord shapes, like the C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, and D shape. And if you know that, coupled with a capo, you can play any song you'd want. So if you're a beginner guitarist, maybe you've learned your open chords, maybe a couple of strumming patterns, and even gone out of your way to learn a few songs or write your own songs. What actually will bring you to the next level, without a doubt in my eyes, is playing bar chords, and not just being able to play, a bar chord for a brief second or know the idea of it. I'm talking about being able to clearly voice any bar chord, even this F chord. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of muscle to build up. But if you can't clearly play bar chords, then that's your first step to, getting to the next level. The bar chords are going to help you no matter what. And eventually, when you learn how to improvise and solo, these bar chords are only going to help you. So that's probably the first thing I would say, is the intermediate guitarist will probably be very proficient at bar chords. The second thing that I think separates a beginner and intermediate guitarist is actually understanding the information on the open chord. So where is your root note? If I'm playing a C major, an intermediate guitarist will likely understand that this note where my ring finger is the root. And also where my pointer finger is also the root. They're both C. So if you do that in every chord shape and understand where the information is, that's going to be probably the second thing that separates an intermediate to a beginner guitarist. Is when I'm playing E minor, where are my root notes? Well, I have an open E, I have an E on the D string 2nd fret, and I have an open E. But not only that, what are the other notes? Well, I have my B note, the 5th, I have an open G, which is the minor 3rd, and then I have an open B, which is the 5th. And that's how you build chords. There's a root note, a 3rd, whether it's major or minor, and a 5th. And if you don't, understand your open chord shapes to that degree where you can pick out where the root note is, the 3rd and the 5th, that would be the second thing I would work on, other than bar chords, to get you up to the next level. The last thing that I would say an intermediate guitarist is going to start to understand is the major scale. So introducing the major scale is super important. It's not like you need to dive into too much theory, but there is, 7 notes that are in the major scale, and we all learn do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and that's the major scale, bottom line. You can refer to them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's perfectly appropriate and probably the best way to learn the major scale. So if you're playing G major, I have it in this bar chord here, and we have G, 1, A2, B3, C4, D5, E is the 6th, F sharp is the 7th, and G is the root again. So it only goes up to 7 and then it starts over. and that's the major scale. So if you don't understand that, that's something that you're going to want to introduce, eventually to get to the next level of being an intermediate guitarist. I would not suggest learning the major scale up and down the neck yet. That'll probably be like an advanced topic, but the one thing that you should start to learn is the pentatonic scale. So that's the last thing that I'll maybe leave you with is, if you were to want to go from being a beginner to an intermediate guitarist, start to learn those bar chords and make sure you can voice them very clearly. This will help by getting a nylon string guitar, or classical guitar, or maybe an electric guitar, because they're just easier to play. But build up those muscles to be able to easily play any barred chord on the neck, and start to break down your open chords, what's inside them, where's the root, third, and fifth. And then the last thing is, start to introduce scales. You don't have to learn the major scale up and down the neck yet. The pentatonic scale is the best probably place to start, where we take the 7 scale degrees in the major scale and actually remove 2 of them. So it only requires you to learn 5 notes, which in the case of G would be G, the 1, A, the 2, B, the 3, D, the 5, and E, the 6. And then it goes back to G. And once you get to that point where you're proficient in bar chords, you know your open chord shapes in and out as far as where the root note is, the third and the fifth, as well as started to learn the major scale and pentatonic scale, that would be the point where you're an intermediate guitarist in my eyes. We'll make a future lesson as far as what you need to do to work on to go from intermediate to advanced, but at least I wanted to point out some of the things that I would focus on if I were a beginner again. And, hopefully those things help open up the guitar for you a little bit more and give you a few things to work on. So thanks for watching this video, and if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe and share with anybody else that wants to learn guitar.